If you've ever used learning stations in your class, you already know how practical it is to divide your students up into smaller groups so that they can learn in a variety of ways. So in this session, we're going to be taking a quick look at one way to break them up using stations and how Edpuzzle can support one of your stations. So what is station rotation model? So in station rotation model, students are typically moving between three stations at 10 to 15 minutes per station, perhaps a little longer depending on your students. And typically there is a online station, an offline station, and a teacher-led station. Again, this is what we see most often in blended learning, where we have some in-person instruction and then some flipped instruction that students may be accessing online. Again, you may not be at this point when creating your first station rotation lesson. You may prefer to start with 2 offline stations to better support your students and your classroom management and have 1 teacher-led station. Or we typically do not want to try and do 2 online stations, except in unique cases where students might be creating something at the end. So here, Brittany has supported us by giving us some lesson plan templates. The first one here on the left is for someone that might be new to stations and wants to know how to better write a lesson plan that incorporates that model. If you are not new to stations, but you want to go a little bit further into your learning centers that offer more choice, she has provided a second lesson plan template that incorporates more than just the standard 3. And then lastly, it's helpful to have a visual in the front of the room that indicates what students are moving to what station and directions, so that when you are having your teacher-led station, students are not asking you what they should be doing next in their independent stations. So in the rest of this video, we're just going to be flying through ways that Edpuzzle can support you in your online station. So we do have a pro account to Edpuzzle in the ITRT instructional updates. You can find the link if you have not already accessed our pro account. It will give you a special code. And in Edpuzzle, you start with a video, you embed some notes, some annotations, some questions, and you can track your student progress. So also in Edpuzzle, you are able to select content. If you have not looked into Edpuzzle recently, you may find some new things, such as specific YouTube channels are listed at the top for easy, quick access. You now have, you can now look up 360-degree videos, as well as Edpuzzle Originals. Edpuzzle Originals are not sourced through YouTube, which makes them accessible to students who are even in limited access here in LCS. There is easy editing. So most of you who have used Edpuzzle probably know that you can cut the beginning and the end of a video, but you also have the ability to splice out any unnecessary information in the middle. You simply click on your video, you add cut, and you can cut out to the left or to the right. You also now have the ability, if you can see beside cut, you have voiceover, and you can add a personal touch by having your own voice in the video. Edpuzzle allows for multiple choice questions where you can add images, you can add emojis, and you can provide feedback to students. So you may not have noticed, but now in the choices in the bottom right-hand corner, you can now provide feedback to students by clicking on that icon and send them to an external link. Perhaps you give them an audio note as feedback. Perhaps it's just a simple suggestion, or it could be an external link to some notes or to another video or resource that could support them. In addition, in Edpuzzle, you can have open-ended questions that allow for audio responses. So students no longer have to type a long response. They can also have the choice to use their microphone on their Chromebook to record one. Again, this also you can add external articles for synthesis and for students to explore other points of view, as well as images. Another great resource are notes and audio notes. You don't just have to add questions to your videos, you can also add notes. These notes can be your a voice note, or it can be at a certain point in the video, links to outside resources. In this example here, you can see there is a table of contents with different links that the student may need to access while they're watching the video. We are going to fly through this part with adding to Google Classroom. It's just like a lot of the other software we're familiar with and we use, that it will sync to your Google Classroom and import students, and you assign your video lessons in similar ways. If you need to reach out to me on how to do this, I'd be happy to show you, and you can see in Google Classroom. Now, after the data, you can look at data by students, class, or across assignments. You can see here all the different ways that you can see data and all the time spent on certain videos, averages, and so forth, just by clicking on your class on the left-hand toolbar. So some best practices: keep it short. They say the best video length is 6 to 12 minutes. I would say for our middle school students, it's even shorter than that, maybe 4 to 7, maybe a little longer, depending on your specific students and how used to stations and this independent work they are. Cut the video as many times as you need to really make it super focused on the essentials. Add signaling. Use these notes, use these audio cues and these visual cues to make sure that students are stopping and using the information throughout the video. Break it up every 2 to 3 minutes. Again, have students do something with the resource, whether that's answering a question or solving a problem based on the first part of the video, or completing a step in a science lab that the video instructed them on the first part, or providing students some sort of feedback. And again, this added to this is just have them always show off their learning. Paraphrasing, writing summaries, taking notes. This should be active learning, and I cannot encourage you enough to not just take videos that you have found on Edpuzzle and just assigning them. Even if you are not making your own videos, why recreate the wheel? Make them your own. Make them useful to what you are doing in your class specifically, whether that's adding notes to resources that are in your specific Google Classroom, or voice-overing certain parts so students hear your voice. The last part of this is just a top 8. I have chosen like 8 of my favorite pieces of Edpuzzle that you may or may not be familiar with. You can now do live mode with your videos, so it's kind of like a Nearpod or a Pear Deck, where you are moving students at the same pace through the questions. This is great for when you're starting with Edpuzzle. Obviously not in station rotation because it would need to be teacher-led, but if you are introducing Edpuzzle for the first time, this would be great to use. Student projects. Students can now create and upload their own videos in Edpuzzle so they can show off their understanding. This ideas for the classroom. If you click on that, it will take you to a Padlet for all different ways you can create virtual tours or field trips in using Edpuzzle, SEL lessons, choice boards, so forth and so on. So these are just my top 8. When you get this slide deck, the link, and just click on a box, it will take you to more information about each. Please, if you would like to use Edpuzzle in your classroom and for station rotations, invite me in. I'd be happy to help you create your first lesson or look over some of the new resources you may be less familiar with.